easy ones. Could you
Okay.
tell us your name, please?
I'm Betty Hicks.
Okay,
Yeah.
and where are you from originally?
Originally, I'm from Southern California and Missouri and Kansas and then Ohio. Yeah, so I've been around a lot.
Oh my goodness, how'd you end up here?
Uh, Love. Yeah. Fell in love with my husband and moved here. He wouldn't leave Ohio for anything, so I gave a job in Leavenworth, Kansas, and moved to Portsmouth, Ohio, or Wheelersburg, Ohio. Yeah.
All right, and we came today. You're going to talk a little bit
Okay.
about the Red Cross. So, what do you know about the Ohio River Valley chapter of the Red Cross?
A lot. I was director of the local United Way for several years and got to work with the American Red Cross hand in hand on a lot of things, and their outreach is just unbelievable. Their response, uh, the people involved with the Red Cross, the volunteers, the paid staff, it's just fantastic organization. I used to tell people, you really don't know, you know, what tomorrow's going to bring. You don't know when you're going to need the services of the Red Cross, and boy, that hit home. It hit home, yeah.
Um, how have you been personally touched by the Red Cross?
Actually, it started years ago. I remember when I was about 13, 14 years old, I was in Kansas City and I was staying with my sister and had to spend the night in the basement because of all the tornadoes hitting every place around the city, and woke up the next morning, and thank goodness Kansas City wasn't hit, but Topeka, Kansas was pretty much wiped off the face of the earth, and watching her little black and white TV and seeing the Red Cross there doing what they did. Of course, at that time I was only about 13 or 14. It was little black crosses on the TV, but that's my earliest memory of the American Red Cross. And then in 1980, my children's great-grandmother passed away, and we had no idea where her son was. And somebody said, call the Red Cross, and we did, and within 24 hours they had not only found him in Texas, but had him on his way back to Missouri for the funeral. So that was my first personal dealing with the American Red Cross. And then, of course, I worked at the VA in Leavenworth, Kansas, and worked with the Combined Charitable Campaign. And the American Red Cross was a big part of so many of our veterans' lives and helping them with different situations. So I got to see a lot of what they did then. Then when I moved here and became the director of the United Way and got to see firsthand what they did in our community responding to the fires, when they had the prison riots, the response to help set up temporary for families that were coming in during that time, and seeing how fast they got into motion and got things done. And then during the time that my husband was being treated for cancer before he passed away, the benefits of the blood bank started coming through in some of his treatments, and the blood parts that had to be used for those treatments. So I got to see that part of it. And then, of course, on August the 15th of this year, when somebody set our home on fire and we were out of town, and at 5 o'clock in the morning got a phone call saying, you need to come home, your house is gone. And we drove home not knowing exactly what we were driving home to, because we had 3 small children from 6, 3, and 1, that basically we were homeless. We had no place to sleep that night. And when we arrived back home, there was the Red Cross volunteer, already had a room for us ready, already had food for us, and after we got settled in the hotel, here he came with a box full of goodies for the kids, which they still sleep with, by the way. So they absolutely loved those little treasures because they had lost all those treasures. They had lost so much. Bailey had never lived in any home other than that home, and he was 6 years old. All of his stuffed animals and his blankets and everything were gone. But thanks to the Red Cross, he had a new blanket to sleep with that night, and Malia had a frog to sleep with that night, and Emmy had a blanket. So and they helped us not just that day, but the next day when reality, the first night you're in shock, okay? You're in shock. What do I do? We have these 3 kids. Where do we go? The Red Cross took the fear away from us. They gave us the stability and the strength and the courage, the encouragement to move on, to say, okay, we're okay. We lost stuff. That's all we lost was stuff. They can't take away our memories. They can't take away anything else. And we can put one foot in front of the other because the Red Cross is there prodding us on, and we'll get through this. And we have, and I brought a couple of things, okay, I want to share with you. One of the things we lost was a picture of my daughter with her father, and we thought we only had one. Guess what? We had another one, so we got to keep that. And I brought a picture of 3 very happy children with Santa Claus last week, so we're settled. And a big part of this happiness is because Red Cross helped us to get settled and someplace happy before Christmas. So that's my story. Okay.
Let's see, and I think you kind of answered it, but I'm going to make sure I get all of the ones that they recommended for us here. How did it make you feel when the Red Cross helped you?
Pride is a big part when something happens. And the Red Cross allowed me to keep my pride and move on. Realize that this is what they're there for. That yes, they are a charity, but they're there in people's most stressful situations, whether it be the fire that I went through, whether it be the floods that we had in '97, the prison riots that we had back, I think that was, I don't remember exactly when that was, back in the early '90s, but they're there, and they're there to help everybody. It doesn't make any difference what your circumstances of life is. They're there to help you. So I guess how it made me feel was like all of the things I believed in were still there. That's how it did.
The last one on this list is, do you think people should promote and support the local chapter of the Red Cross in their community?
You don't know until you need it how much you should promote and be there for them. You don't realize until you need it. If it's not there when you need it, where do you go? Where would I have gone that night? Who would I have turned to that night with 3 small children if it hadn't been for the American Red Cross? So yes, by all means, that even the most minute donation, whether it is monetary or physical, helps this Red Cross chapter do what it does. Yeah.
Well, if you've got a few minutes, could I ask you a couple of minutes?
Sure.
Great. I wanted to make sure I got all of the specific ones taken care of, but I'm hoping that the library does the Sarah County Memory Project and collect video histories. I'm hoping to talk to some of the folks from the prison, right? Not the prisoners, the officers. And you mentioned that you were here then, and were...
I was here. My husband was on the line. He was outside the prison. Yeah. No, I wouldn't mind at all. Something I forgot to mention is just a year before this fire, this chapter of the Red Cross honored my husband as Hero Firefighter of the Year. And I never thought that would come back, especially who thinks a year later you're actually going to need that service when your husband was a firefighter. And the fire, the whole thing, yeah, I'd be happy to talk about that if you want to, because I had just had back surgery and was at home and got a phone call. Well, I was on the phone calling the Red Cross and saying, what can we do? What can we do? And the one thing they needed was pillows. So I made a phone call to the hospital, who said, sure, we have the pillows. And I made a phone call to Ruth Ann Brush, who drove to the hospital and got the pillows and took them out to the new school that nobody, the new school had not been used yet. when they set up the housing for the families that were coming in. So it was, yeah, it was a, yeah, and of course, my husband was out on the line, and so you didn't know really what was going on, you know. I felt he was safe, but it was still a scary night. Yeah.
So he was one of the guards that was there?
He was at the time, he was a firefighter with the city of Portsmouth, but he served on the sheriff's department's special deputies as part of the diving team. So they called in all of the deputies, including the special deputies, and had them come and stand on the line around the prison with their guns. Well, Larry had a high-powered rifle with a scope on it, so they put him in the front line there, you know, and it was basically, they said, if they make the first fence, shoot them, and you know, so yeah, but he was there. I don't remember exactly how long he was there. I just remember that I was laying on the couch because I just had back surgery and couldn't go do anything or help with anything, and was lucky enough to be able to call the hospital, and they had the pillows that we needed, and I had a good friend, Ruth Ann Brush, who got the pillows and took them to the school. So it was a high impact night for the whole county,
How did, and I know I don't know as much because I think I was in the first grade at the time.
Oh, really?
I just remember, people talking about it in hushed voices. So I don't know as much. How did the people in that line, do you know how they decided who they called up sheriff's deputies and?
I think that it was, of course, the prison system and the highway patrol, and then down the line the sheriff's department and any extra people response teams that they had. And like I said, Larry was on the Portsmouth Fire Department at the time, and then a special deputy, and had the experience that he had in law enforcement and everything else, that he was just one of the ones that was called, that they needed. They needed people that were trained. Larry had served he was sent to Vietnam twice, so he had served 2 tours in Vietnam. So he was asked to be where he was, and when he came home, you know, it upset everybody, because when you have no control of a situation, as in what happened Friday, you know, when you have no control of a situation and all you could do is give your hearts, then that's what you give, and you give whatever you can. And at that time, the whole community, everybody around us, was giving everything they could. You know, we couldn't bring back the lives that were lost. We couldn't change what happened, but we could be here for the families that were most impacted with that. And I think that the Red Cross, that every organization in the county stepped up to be there, and I was proud of the whole county. So it was a tough time, but it was nice to see all of the big hearts. There again, if you don't support it, it's not there, you know. So yeah. Any more?
Well, is there anything that I didn't ask you about that you think I should, or anything that you want to make sure that you get to say?
The only thing is that we go through life, and a lot of us are not touched by devastation. I've been very lucky in my life. You know, I haven't had a perfect life. I don't come from a real structured environment. I was lucky enough to get a good education and to have good jobs that took me into a different lifestyle, and I've always believed in helping the people around me, and have always extended a hand to anybody I could, you know. And that's the thing about an organization. It has to have those people. With, again, whether it's monetary or it's physical, every organization needs those people. The Red Cross is the epitome of that. What they do locally, nationally, internationally is unbelievable. It's unbelievable how prepared they are.
Would you care, you mentioned that you'd worked with the United Way for a good amount of time. Would you remind me what you did there, and would you care to talk about the changes or how you saw this particular community during your time working with the United Way?
There's so much that has changed in our area. There are so much fewer jobs in this area. It's so much harder to maintain the needs of our community because there is less available. When you're talking about income and you look at income back in the early 90s to what it is today in this county, and you realize that we've lost a lot of good organizations, and it was because the money had to go to the primary needs. And it always, in every walk of life, the money has to address the most need at the time. And that's what's happened in Scioto County. A lot of organizations are hurting, have folded their doors, a lot of good organizations. And it's because as we lose the jobs, the people that have the money to support them are gone. So it's more important than ever that people realize that, the one thing, when I first started to work at the Veterans Administration, we had the Combined Charitable Campaign. And when I went to work, I was told two things. One, you would buy a savings bond you would be a part of the savings bond fund drive. So I bought a savings bond every, my 25 or 50 cents for a $25 savings bond, that the minute I got it, I had to cash it because I made $101 clear every 2 weeks, and my rent was $75. So that didn't leave a lot of money through the month, or $95 was my rent, $75 was my car payment. But I bought the savings bond, and I was told you would give to the Combined Charitable Campaign. The minimum that you could give was 50 cents a pay period that you gave. So I gave, but I really begrudged that money. That was money that I really needed. 50 cents back then bought me a lot of food, So I really begrudged being told I had to give. So the first opportunity I had, I quit giving. And then I became involved with the Combined Charitable Campaign, and I saw, what it did and what those funds did. I still don't believe in the high pressure make somebody give thing. I don't believe in that. And when I gave my presentations, I always said, if you teach the people what you're doing, if you show them what they're giving for, they will give. Don't pressure them. But if you haven't taught them, if you don't show them what you are and what you're doing, then they're not going to give. And luckily, people understood that, and they learned about our organizations. The thing is, we have to teach about our organizations. We have to teach them what we are and what we do and why we do it, and let them know that they're a part of it. The other part of that is they're a part of it. They're the ones that say, okay, I'm donating. I want to know where it's going. I want to see that it's doing well. I want to know what's happening, And I think that's what we lose, is that we don't go in with the understanding that we can't just show up and say, hey, give me money. We have to go in and say, last year the American Red Cross served this number of fires in Scioto County. They collected this many units of blood in Scioto County. This number of people at Southern Ohio Medical Center, people from our community, had to use blood parts or blood transfusions or whatever they use in Scioto County. Make it hit home. And this organization does a good job. I mean, they do. But my belief is you have to educate people that one day they're going to need this organization. One day, I had it easy because I represented, I think it was 19 organizations at the time. I'm not sure how many there was because we gave full time to some, and to some we just gave one time. I had organizations like the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts, the American Red Cross, the Salvation Army, Goodwill, all of these. Name me a person in Scioto County that sometime along their life is not going to be touched by one of those organizations. So my job was easy. It's a hard thing to ask for money when people don't have it. It's a hard time to ask for money when you're not getting pay raises, when your taxes are going up, when people are losing their homes. It's a hard thing to ask for money. But if the people that have the money don't give, then what do you have? You know, what do you have? Nothing. So, yeah. Makes sense?
Sure.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So, you're done with me.
I can turn you